So that's the two steps as of now. Evaluate it and then likely lock down by yourself. And then at some point,
All right, we'll give it just a second here and then we'll get started. I assume thumbs up if y'all can hear me. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Just want to make sure.
Hi, Brad.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started, guys? Hey, thank you so much for jumping back on with me. I really wanted to kind of cover this topic a couple of weeks ago, but my internet had other plans, so I'm glad we were able to get back together on this. So today's topic is going to be um, the luxury real estate market. And so, why am I covering this today? Well, I think that as the market continues to be a bit of a struggle in different pockets of the state, um, I think that we can't not succeed. And so, if you want to get closings, then you're going to have to perhaps shift your strategy. And so, and the same goes for home buyers. I mean, if they can't afford a home that was once affordable 2 years ago, they're going to have to pivot and change their strategy. And so, what might that mean? Well, they might have to look at um, uh, moving further out from where they wanted to, or buy a fixer-upper, or buy a townhome or a condo that tends to be a little less expensive. And so the same goes for us as realtors. And so um, a somewhat sometimes intimidating sector of our business is luxury real estate, and I don't want it to be. I think that, as my title slide implies, it's a lot easier to get into this niche than you might realize. Now, it is like any other niche in real estate. If you know the process, if you know your numbers, and you craft a system, then it's just a matter of time before you become the expert in this area. So let's take a look at the stats of luxury. So just bear in mind, and Valerie, you'll probably get a kick out of this being in California, but um, a luxury home in Texas is, designated as a home that is priced double of what the average home price is in the MLS. And so for us, generally speaking, that is going to be $800,000. So um, bear in mind that the other reason I'm doing this today is that this segment of home buyers and sellers are not necessarily as affected, or if affected at all, by rising and falling interest rates, a strong or weak housing market, or anything that has to do with economic success, right? They're going to buy and sell a home regardless. And so I think it's important to point out that homes that have been priced over $800,000 have sold at the same rate January 1 through July 1 this year versus last year. So when you take a look at every other price sector, there is a slowing down. But in this segment, there simply is not. And it might interest you to know that nationwide, 1,000 millionaires have been added to that designation every day in 2024. So the pool of buyers in this segment just continues to grow. Now, here's the one thing you have to remember about a luxury home buyer. So let's just talk about the buyer for a second. They're likely going to have to get what's called a jumbo loan. And a jumbo loan is where the loan, not the price of the home necessarily, but the loan, the financed amount, exceeds 766,550. All right. Now that doesn't mean that, and you're not going to get into buyers that are, uh, can't afford to scrape together 10% down for one of these homes. You're dealing with high income earners. But that being said, they're going to have to go get likely what's known as a jumbo loan. And so these are what we call non-conforming loans. So let me just give you a little bit of a mortgage 101 real quick. So it may interest you to know that the largest purchaser of home loans is our federal government. So let's say that Stephen Jackson, who represents Guild Mortgage within our brokerage, he acquires one of your buyer clients, and Guild Mortgage is the one that takes the application, they commit to the loan, and they make the loan. Well, They then, amongst, every other lender in the world or in the country, then takes that loan and sells it to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, our federal government. Now, he who writes the check makes the rules. So the rules are for a lot of those loans is, as you guys probably well know, got to have a certain credit score, got to put down a certain amount of money, got to have a record of being able to pay your bills. That those are what are called conforming loans. They conform to the set of rules that Fannie and Freddie put out. When a loan doesn't, then that means that Fannie and Freddie are not buying those loans, okay? Because it's too risky. Now, they are sold to another segment of investors, but they are not sold to Fannie and Freddie. So what does that mean? Well, again, there are stricter requirements, debt to income ratio. It might require a larger down payment. They are going to have higher interest rates. All right, a jumbo loan is not going to carry the same interest rate as a 30-year conventional on a $400,000 home. All right, because the risk is greater. All right. And so the other thing that kind of complicates the jumbo loan piece is that you're going to deal with a pretty fair amount of self-employed slash business owners. And as you know, if you've ever had such a client, the loan process can be a little bit tricky, all right, because there's no, real good paper trail on exactly how much they made the previous year. All right, so this is kind of who you're dealing with. This does not mean that these loans aren't done every day, all day, because they are. I'm just telling you that if you're used to a typical 30-year fixed or a 30-year FHA, this kind of breaks that mold. All right. So here is the reality of dipping your toe into this pool. All right. You've heard the expression, don't judge a book by its cover. Okay. Well, the reality when it comes to luxury is that, these are people that are operating at a different level, right? And so it's probably the only segment of our business where they are going to judge a book by its cover. Okay. Because think about it. If you're the buyer and you need representation to go buy a $900,000 home, $1 million home, you're darn sure going to vet the person that's going to represent you. Okay. So it ain't a jeans and t-shirt kind of presentation. All right. Okay. So I'm just saying that because if you're used to not bringing your A game, you're going to have to pivot your strategy. Because look, if you were going to go buy a $1.5 million home, who would you hire? Well, I had who would you hire on this slide. I changed it to who would you take more seriously? All right. The guy on the left or the guy on the right? Now, look, the client can dress however they want. In fact, they're probably going to be dressed more casual than the gentleman on the right. But if you want to be taken more seriously, especially when it comes to listings in this segment, you better look like the gentleman on the left. Okay. So, but remember, let me move my screen. Luxury clients are going to put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. So do not be afraid to enter into a conversation about an asset that represents twice what you're probably used to dealing with. All right, they're the same kind of person. They are just at a stage of life of high achievement. And 99.9% of the time, they struggle just like the rest of us, right? So they know from where they came and they're sympathetic to giving people a chance and, um, doing that. So, but just remember, they're normal, just like you and I. So here are the numbers in the past 90 days. So in 2025, for the past 90 days, we have sold about just a little over 3,000 homes that have been priced at $800,000 or more. The average days on market is 58. So for those of you that have not been on previous meetings, this is exactly the same number of days that homes have sat in every other price segment. So that was pretty surprising to me. That I would have expected, since the funnel is typically more narrow at this price point, that they would be sitting longer, and that's just simply not the case. The average price is just a little over 712,000 bucks. And then the most important thing that you all need to realize is that the average commission on that home is going to be 21,378, or um, you would have to sell two of closings at the mid-range price of a home versus one luxury home. So if you are, selling, I don't know, 10 homes a year, then that would mean that you would have to only sell half that amount in this higher price point to make the same amount of money. All right. And so again, luxury is 2 times the average sales price in the MLS, which for Texas is currently a little over $800,000. All right. So hopefully you're starting to see reasons why you all might want to jump into this segment of business. So let's talk about the characteristics of a luxury client. They want an experience from everything they do, right? Now, not necessarily the real estate experience, but I will tell you that it is certainly going to go far beyond listing their home in the MLS and putting a sign in the yard. All right. So they want to feel taken care of. These could be high income earners who have their own brand or reputation. They are used to just excellence in general and problems being solved for them. This is number one. So and I believe that all of y'all are very good problem solvers. All right. And so the trick here is to listen more than you're talking. But they live in a world where problems are solved for them. All right. And they just assume that, look, you went and got your license, you're here talking to me. They're going to assume that you're going to get this done and will likely not micromanage you. So that's the good news. The bad news is you're going to typically get one chance to get this right. All right. Because they don't have time to mess around with incompetence or wishy-washiness or, all that. All right. So just kind of bear that in mind. Could be someone who is concerned about their own status and, hey, what the neighbors think, right? Got to get a bigger and better house. Could be someone who is a self-made millionaire. Could be someone who is the absolute best in their profession, top of their game, and they feel like, hey, I deserve a luxury home. It might just be me and my spouse. I've got no kids, but man, I deserve 5,000 square feet, 2 acres of land, and that's what I want. They typically all want a high level of communication and service. Now, they're going to be busy, but it is important for you to still communicate on a pretty frequent basis, probably more than you would normally do with any other client, right? Because that's what they're used to. They typically are not afraid to be told what to do in terms of things like how to get, things that you see necessary to get their home ready to put on the market, or if they're a buyer client, maybe you setting expectations on what the market is out there. They just want a straight shooter, right? If they're a listing client, they are typically not afraid to spend some money to get the home ready to sell, because there is no other segment of the selling population than this segment that wants their home sold for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. Okay. So, and look, they see you as an expert in your field because they're an expert in their field, right? So they want to be surrounded by that same level of competence. Things like security and just things that make their life convenient are very key to them. All right. And I tend to find this segment of real estate very approachable, very approachable. All right, so how do you connect with a luxury client? Think about giving back to the community, philanthropic endeavors. So, if part of your personal brand is, I'm going to donate a portion of my commission to the local animal shelter or a local homeless shelter, things of that nature, that is a big deal to them. That will resonate. You got to dress the part. Got to dress the part. And if you want to get into this segment of business, I would review all of your social media accounts and take down any post that would serve to paint you in a less than professional picture, whether that be just a too casual post or you're not dressed the part. I mean, all of your marketing should be synonymous with I take this seriously, I dress the part, and this is who my clientele is. Got to communicate and bring your A game, right? You can't take shortcuts. You could preview other luxury homes. These are all extremely easy, right? I mean, you can go out right now after this meeting and set appointments to go see $800,000 plus homes just as a preview, just to see um, what's inside of these homes and what is important to the owners that are listing these homes. Approach with confidence. Communicate a level of assuredness. So in other words, they need to feel that you've got this taken care of. You've got all of their problems solved. All right. They're going to demand that you be the hyper local expert. So this is also free, right? Know your numbers. Go into the MLS, start looking for homes that are 800 plus, and start to pick apart the commonalities. Are they all a certain square footage? Do they all have certain amenities? Are they all in a certain acre of land? Like what is the vibe you're getting? And that's free, right? So you could do all that and approach them with confidence just because you know more about their assets. Right. And then remember, their home is not just used for utility or function. It's personal to them. Right. You're going to get a clientele that's typically big on entertaining. They didn't buy this big home to, not show it to people. All right. So it will be a big deal. So ask lots of questions to make sure you know exactly what they're looking for. All right, whether they're buyers or a listing client. So to my point earlier, it's very, very important to ask a bunch of questions, listen more than you're speaking. All right, and look, there are high-end brands of fixtures that go into these homes typically. You got Viking, and there a lot of it's kitchen related. Viking, Gen Air, Sub-Zero freezers, Wolf. I mean, know these brands. All right. And you need look no further than just doing a Google search. All right. So let's talk about resources for getting a luxury client. Um, Expireds and for sale by owners are very good. Now, I would shy away from a for sale by owner because I think like any price point, um, they're going to be hesitant to use a realtor. I'm not saying don't do it, but expired listings are far better in this segment as a means to get a luxury client, right? Because think about what I said earlier. If they're hiring a realtor to solve problems and get the job done, well, why did the house expire then? Right? So that other realtor didn't check those boxes. Now, yes, of course, the seller could have overpriced the home, but you kind of get where I'm going with this, right? They're ready to try somebody new. Go to specific high-end neighborhoods. So look, this is going to represent probably 10% of any town's inventory. Know those neighborhoods, right? There's only going to be a handful of them, so know those neighborhoods. And you don't need to go much further than looking in the MLS, searching for homes that are priced 800,000 or above, actives, and you're going to see all of them pop up. And you're going to see the 4 or 5 or 6 subdivisions that these homes are in, right? And so those are your marching orders. Those are the subdivisions you need to go research. Now, some of them, yes, may be gated. And some of them in that regard, you're not going to be able to get into. But the ones that aren't, I mean, that's a free path to education, right? So know those neighborhoods. You might consider creating a social media page or another knowledge base that proves your expertise. And that's really synonymous with how you're marketing yourself, right? So if I'm a high earner, a high income earner, and I'm about ready to list my home, I'm going to do research on you, right? And so if I did that today and I looked at all of y'all's social media accounts, would it communicate that you're serious about real estate and you know what you're doing, right? So that should be first and foremost. Um, Leave cards or partner with businesses that this clientele frequents. So I'm talking about, high-end car dealerships, spas, things of that nature. I mean, you should be able to go into one of these high-end establishments and establish yourself as the local expert in luxury real estate. All right. And so simply put, go to where they are. But it has to be high end, right? So nail salons, restaurants, shopping centers, car dealerships, country clubs, spas, places where they're going to spend their money. And this may seem odd, but there's no harm in watching luxury TV shows to just get a feel for um, how this demographic operates, right? So I think Million Dollar Listing is still on. There's a couple of other ones. Now, mind you, that all tends to be sensationalized, right? So you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt, but it does give you a window into the world of people that are buying and selling this kind of asset. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea until I watched some of those shows. And it kind of gave me the confidence that I needed to tell myself, yeah, I deserve to be here just as much as the next guy. Yeah, I'll sell somebody a $300,000 home, but there's no reason why I can't hit up expired listings in the Toll Brothers neighborhood 6 blocks over where the average price is 1.2, right? Don't underestimate new construction. They need to move inventory just like the rest of us. Take a look at Toll Brothers and some other high-end builders. Believe me, they need us in terms of extending their marketing to the general public. All right, so resources and just other things to remember. So NAR does have a designation for a luxury agent. I think they have more than one. It is worth getting. It is worth getting. In any other segment of real estate, maybe the general public doesn't know what those initials mean, GRI and ABR and all that, but they're gonna perk up when they see a luxury designation next to your name. And if you're looking for referrals, this is a great, great niche to get into because an agent that is looking to refer a listing or a buyer to you wants to know that you're serious about this segment of business, right? And I mean, some of them won't even send a referral unless you have a luxury designation. All right, so here's some marketing resources, Luxury Home Magazine, things that you can advertise in. Keep in mind, it is a longer sales cycle, right? Because the funnel is just typically more narrow. If you have ever bought or sold in this price range, you'll know that the wiggle room can be a lot bigger the higher the price, right? So in a $400,000 home, you ain't getting that thing for 350, right? But in a $950,000 home, you might be getting it for $900,000, right? Because the wiggle room is just more in this area. And here's the other thing to remember. In this price point, there are the bites that you'll get are so few and far between that if you have an interested buyer, um, you got to hang on to them, right? Because the next one may not come around for a while. And this really pertains more to a listing than a buyer. But if you represent a luxury buyer, you're gonna find that if the listing agent is good, then they're gonna do whatever they can to keep you on the hook, right? Because um, the next one may not come around for a while. All right. Have a strong marketing plan. So I've been talking about this for months now, and this is never more important than in this segment. Needs to be different than what you provide for lower price points. So the colors are different. The presentation should be different. It should scream high-end luxury. So let's talk about that. So when you represent a buyer, you need to create an experience for them. So this is a buyer looking to go buy a home, $800,000 plus, right? Things like take them to lunch, make them comfortable during the search, have lots of resources available so they don't have to think too much, right? Make them feel important. Again, they all want an experience. Have a list of luxury vendors ready to go for post move-in, right? Again, problem solving. Anything that you present paperwork wise needs to go in a folder with unique branding. So think about this analogy. When you go to a fancy restaurant, they typically do not bring out the check in a plastic, beat up old tray that has an American Express logo on it with a Bic pen, do they? They bring it to you in a leather bound folder with a nice pen and they just kind of slide it over to you, right? It's a whole different experience and presentation. So should this be, right? They are not shopping Walmart here. They're shopping Neiman's, right? So the experience from y'all should be commensurate with that mindset. Don't apply pressure, right? There is no need to do the hard sell here. They're about to write a check for a very expensive asset. They know what the stakes are. You don't need to pressure them, right? Be prepared with good negotiation skills, right? They're paying top dollar for the home, needs to be perfect, not a fixer-upper. And so if you feel like you're lacking in this area, plenty of courses to take to increase negotiation skills, right? So this is why they're hiring you. All right. And remember, you're not shopping with your wallet, you're shopping with theirs. And so, listen, I can't afford an $800,000 home. Now, I can't afford the home that I'm in if I had to go buy it all over again because the prices have increased so much. But that's not your business, right? You are shopping with their checkbook, not yours, right? So don't chime in with, "Oh gosh, that's expensive," or "Oh, that's overpriced." They don't care, right? It's not your checkbook, it's theirs. All right, so let's talk about the seller. Um, be prepared up front to spend more money on marketing, not just a little more, probably a lot more. All right. Um, you got to use ultra professional photos, aerial shots, drones, you know, high end. A real estate photographer that can take those photos, doctor them up, and make them look professional, right? Professionally staged. Now, it will probably go without saying that the contents of those homes are going to have some very nice furnishings, right? But that doesn't mean that, if it's a retired person, they're living in a $1.5 million home, that they haven't acquired a lot of stuff along the way. So it may still be cluttered, even though it is going to be a high-priced home. You got to have that conversation with them and get it professionally staged. And you're paying for that, by the way. Consider an ad in a luxury real estate publication. Now, these, along with open houses, aren't going to be the ones that's not going to sell the home, but it sure does make the seller feel important, right? So these ads aren't cheap, but the seller is going to want to know that their home is, in a really nice luxury real estate publication. People are, waiting to get their car serviced at the local Mercedes dealership. They pick up this publication and they see the home. That is a big deal. Will it sell the home? Probably not, but it strokes the ego. And that's what we're talking about here. Many of them will not want an open house. All right. So again, different strategy when it comes to this price point. Why? Because they don't want their house being cased for a robbery. They don't want to worry about theft, or a careless realtor leaving the back door unlocked. It happens, right? But I would consider a broker open, which means that the audience is only other realtors. Okay. So that I would support, but don't be surprised if these clients say, I don't want an open house. You can keep it. All right. And you might consider that you be present at all the showings. That's a big one. You might consider requiring a pre-qualification letter for all showings. Also common. Also common, right? So hopefully you're seeing where there are some points that are really going to differentiate you as a realtor when you come in and say, okay, well, we're not going to do an open house. I'm going to be present in all the showings, and I'm going to mandate that everyone give to me a pre-qualification letter before they even show their home, before we even show your home. That will cause them to stand up and take notice. All right. So, marketing wise, got to have professional headshots, dressed appropriately all the time, high-end business cards with what I would call a textured finish. So you can get these cards that, usually the choice is matte or gloss, right? But they have these textures you can put on business cards that just make it a little bit more high-end, rounded corners. I'm not talking about the box of 500 for $30 from Vistaprint. All right. I'm talking high-end, bit thick business cards. Right? Everything should go in a folder, branded, right? Not just a 97-cent back to school special you get at Walmart. I'm talking pre-ordered, branded folders. And look, there is psychologically colors that will convey high end. They are black, gold, gray, navy blue, deep reds, emerald green, silver. They convey luxury and wealth. So think about that when you're doing marketing. You could use our one-page resume or Canva templates. A month or so ago, I offered to do promo videos. This is why, right? I can't build these things. I got them off of Canva, and so should you. And so elevate your marketing. That is the key directive in this segment. Professional website with lots of resources. I'm talking a blog, I'm talking pictures of homes that either the brokerage or you have bought or sold, representing clients, things that will scream luxury. All right, so overall behavior, I'm just going to tell you right now, you're on call 24/7. But hey, if you only have to sell half the amount of inventory that you're normally used to, that's a pretty fair exchange. You're going to be on call 24/7 because that's what they're used to. Got to dress the part. This is probably the fourth time I've mentioned this in this presentation. Ask lots of questions, follow up every other day, even if you've got nothing to report. Right? They want to feel like you are their partner in this. Got to have exceptional market knowledge, knowledge of the school ratings, local retail, luxury amenities, clubs, country clubs, golf clubs, high-end restaurants that they're going to want to know about, right? You need to know that stuff. Got to have strong negotiation skills and able to handle things calmly. Got to have a strong network of resources. All right. And I would always be seeking education in this area, and I would make it public. Make it a point to mention to these clients, hey, I'm on the hunt all the time for education and things that will make me serve my clients better because that is what they're used to. They're used to zero defects and people that are hungry for knowledge and people that want to improve. All right, so you've got to fit that description. Okay, so as I'm pulling up at least the Dallas MLS, are there any questions or comments on what I've gone over so far?
Hey, Brad, you're
Yeah,
right. In California, our median price range is between 8 and 1 million.
yeah,
But even then, clients are expecting more. Can you buy something for 500,000 or 600,000? You can, but the median price range is that. But still, in that price range, they're needing to make a lot of money, which is why a lot of them come to Texas.
right.
So if there's any place that anybody they know in California, any place they know in California that they can market that, hey, if you're making a move to Texas, contact me. I think that's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So Valerie's kind of in a unique situation. She has dual licensure in California and in Texas. So I figured you'd have some commentary on that. And to your point about the migration from California to here, I think it's pretty common knowledge about the mindset that they're in, and they can get more for their money here. It's interesting though. The one constant is the jumbo loan piece. So whatever the price point, whatever state you live in, the jumbo loan limit is what the loan limit is. And so whether it's the average price of a home in California or a luxury property here in Texas, um, to your point, Valerie, they want more, they expect more, and they deserve more. And so I have not gone into any of these listings yet. I figured it would be a cool exercise to go into some of these to see um, you know, what a listing agent presents on a luxury home. So I looked for $800,000 or more. This is Hey, this is in Hazlet. Also, your neck of the woods, Valerie. So this is in Hazlet. This is in the Fort Worth area of Texas. 965. And so this is listed by a brokerage, Ultima Real Estate. They are a low cost brokerage, so not known for luxury. Okay. Um, And let's just see. So I see this is wonderful. This is a great example. Over here, next to the clock, you typically see is this new construction? Yeah, it is new construction. Sorry, bad example. Let me go to someplace else. Hang on. Okay. So this is $1.1 million. This is in Heath, Texas. I think that's east of DFW. Um, so this is listed by a typical luxury brokerage, Briggs Freeman Sotheby's International. All right, so you would think that this is going to be hitting on all cylinders. So next to the clock is this little stacked paper looking icon. That's transaction desk. So let's click on that and see what they have for us. So they have a floor plan. They have a seller's disclosure. And then what's this? Oh, square footage disclosure. Okay. So I don't know, man. I would have expected a survey. I would have expected a T47. I would have expected offer instructions. I would have expected, hey, here's a list of all the upgrades for a $1.1 million home. That's kind of what I would have expected. All right, so let's take a look at the pictures. All right, so well, before we do that, let me just see. So this is $206 a square foot, and it is on 0.78 acres, so almost a full acre. Um, I mean, all right, we'll see if it's worth the price in a second. But my point, especially in Texas, was going to be that a $1.1 million listing could easily be a 10-acre piece of land with a mobile home on it. All right, so the one that I pulled up happens to not be that. It probably happens to be exactly what you think of when you think of a luxury listing. But in Texas, it's different. It's a lot of times all about the land, right? But the price point is the same. So here it is. Nice kind of front shot, but that's an aerial photo, right? So that's nice. Nice finishings. I don't like the glare on the picture. I mean, I'm not trying to be critical, but 1.1 Briggs Freeman prime brokerage for luxury listings. I don't know. These photos aren't. I mean, what do y'all think?
Brad, just a quick comment. So when I've hired a professional photographer, I'll still go back and always edit the photos a little bit. Like
Yeah,
there's an eraser app, like I can get rid of cables that the photographer doesn't do, just like things like that. So I can even elevate the pictures just a little further.
right, right. So, I mean, I guess before I looked at these pictures, uh, in the spirit of creating an experience, I don't know if at 1.1 million these photos do that. I don't know what you all think, but I don't know. That's kind of a twilight. That's kind of cool. But 1 out of 40. I mean, if I were the owner, I'd have an issue with this. There's glares all over. Look at all these shadows. I don't know. Am I being picky? I would have taken all this down. That is offensive to a lot of people, right? I don't know. So anyway, let's see what the description says. Built-in gas range, built-in refrigerator. Oh, sorry, that's a plant. Sorry. Experience timeless elegance in this serene luxury estate, perfectly positioned on a tranquil pond with a cascading water feature and spectacular sunset views. Nestled on a peaceful 0.78 acre lot, this expansive 5,300 square foot residence offers 4 bedrooms, 5 bath, a media room, 2 private offices, a wine cellar, and live distinct outdoor. I don't know what live distinct outdoor living spaces means, but designed for effortless, entertaining, and quiet retreat. At the heart of the home, an extended covered patio invites al fresco dining and evening gatherings set against glowing skies. 2 luxurious primary suites are thoughtfully located in the main floor, while the fourth upstairs bedroom opens to a private balcony. Additional highlights include 2 garages with space for 5 cars, dual extended driveways leading to a grand circular entry, soaring ceilings, and refined architectural details throughout. Located just 5 minutes from Lake Ray Hubbard with easy access to major highways, this is lakeside living at its most peaceful, private, and connected. Uh, is it next to a lake or next to a pond? Well, I guess near Lake Ray Hubbard. And lakeside living might be a stretch. Anyway, that's kind of what you're up against out there. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I were the seller, Um, I mean, I'd rate this a 6. I don't know if this screams luxury. I don't know if it screams an experience. Um, I mean, you could go to Chat GPT and probably write a better description. Just my opinion. I don't know what y'all think, but so yeah. So anyway, and they're doing an open house. That's unusual. This Saturday from 1 to 3. So if nothing else, this just shows you that whether it be, you know, uh, Briggs Freeman or Engels and Volker or, some other brokerage known for luxury listings, um, I don't know about you, but I could do a better job at this, and so could you, right? So don't be afraid to jump into this niche because all you need to do is take a look at 5 or 6 of these and find out who's doing a lousy job and who's doing a good job. And this one is not typically an example of a great job. Good, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe y'all have a different opinion, but I think any one of you could do a better job. And where's the video? And where's the website?
Brad, how long has this one been on the market?
Very good question. Uh, just came on. 0. Just listed today. List date 7/24. But that's a good point. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, these are all new. Hang on. That's active option. That's 975. That's a much better shot. And this one's been on 2 days, listed by Remax. 2 days. What do they have in here? We'll just do this. We'll just do one more here. Seller's disclosure, T47 survey. So better than the last one. But these nice twilight photos, that's cool. And here's a daytime shot. So this one I think just shows a little bit better. That's horrible wallpaper. Yeah. See, I would have had them take that off. Don't know about you.
You don't have to have them take it off, but you could take the picture so that you don't see it,
Yeah,
and then the buyer can decide to take it off.
exactly. Yep. Yeah, so this one just is staged better, I think. I mean, that screams an experience, right? And that's well photographed.
Photos are closer up. You're getting to see
Yeah,
the details more.
very good point. Very good point. You could picture yourself here. Yeah, see so you could argue, well, no wonder it's only sat for 2 days, right? So
And is it the sellers that usually pay for the professional staging?
Um, no, I mean that's going to be a hard sell. But it's not expensive. It's only expensive when there's nothing in the house, and you got to drag furniture in there. But in that, you might make a decision to not do that. But usually it's the realtor. You can try to negotiate that, but at the end of the day, you want it sold probably more than the seller. So you're usually paying for that and photographs.
I think the staging unless it's vacant, most of the high end are going to look pretty good anyway. But
Yeah.
a lot of the stagers you can pay at close of escrow. They usually will give you 90 days
Yeah.
to pay for the staging, so you don't have to pay for it up front. You just have to sign a contract.
Yep. Yep. Good point. Yeah. And just the description starts off already just better. Luxurious living in lakes of La Cima estates with pond views, so they didn't call it a lake, and Prosper ISD. So that first sentence tells you everything that a buyer typically is going to want to know. School district, luxury living, and where it is. So and it just gets better from there. So that's awesome. So I did not intentionally pick those two, but I think that one is kind of a mediocre example, and I think this one's pretty good. I'd give that an 8 or 9. All right, so that's all I kind of had. Don't suffer from imposter syndrome here, guys. You should all entertain getting into this market. Um, and I think it's low-hanging fruit. I think that people are typically afraid to do this, and but I wouldn't be. I think that it's easy. So anything else before we drop off?
If anybody out there's got a good high-end photographer, I'd love for you to share. We have a couple average photographers we've tried, but have not seen a luxury one in Texas. So if anybody's got a really good photographer they like, maybe even somebody who makes, brochures and flyers and that kind of thing, share.
Will do. Will do. Yeah, so let me just end with this. I think that if there's ever a segment of the market where it's okay to be frank and brutally honest, it's this segment. All right, so this is not the time to sugarcoat stuff and tell them what they want to hear. They want to be told what they need to hear. Right? So this is good practice for other clients that you might feel, I don't want to hurt their feelings. At the end of the day, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you whatever they tell you, they want to be told what they need to hear. And this is important for them because time is important to a luxury client. So don't waste their time by sugarcoating stuff and, you know, not telling them what they need to hear. All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time this week. And next week will be some free CE. I'll send out the flyer next week, but you guys stay cool and have a good rest of the week. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.